कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते ताप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशधारिणे। हरे कृष्णा. So how many of you have read Bhagavad Gita? Or how many of you are coming for the first time to hear or know about Bhagavad Gita? You have been all before, or anyone who is a newcomer in this session among those who are seated here? Or you have, both of you have come for the first time. How many persons have joined online? Ganesh Prabhu? Be little, 28 people. So there are 28 people, more people online than, on the offline. So there would be definitely some people who would have joined online also for new. So basically Bhagavad Gita is a very mystical book. You understand mystical, na? Something which is very difficult in terms of access. Why? Because the book is available. The book is available everywhere. But the learning and the teaching requires qualification. And what is the qualification? The qualification is the inquisitiveness, the keenness, the desire to know. Unless and until there is inquisitiveness, there cannot be any learning, or there cannot be any realization. So what I request is those who are here seated and those who are on the web watching, that please try to focus on hearing. So because this knowledge was imparted through the process of hearing only. It was not that Krishna gave Arjuna the book and told him that you please do the study and you will come to know Bhagavad Gita. If that was true, then Krishna would not have spoken. He would have given the text. So it is the knowledge which is accessible through the process of hearing. And how the hearing has to be with a desire to implement the knowledge, the teachings. So Bhagavad Gita is divided into 18 chapters. Last time also I gave an overview. And in this 18 chapters there are 700 verses. Very precise to the point. Just in 700 verses, all the Vedic wisdom is revealed through the 700 verses. This is uh, this is one of the mystical aspect of Bhagavad Gita. That in short, in very concise, precise, in a very coded way, is revealing the entire Vedic knowledge, which is very vast. So this first chapter is more or less the setting of the scene. And it is very interesting. What is the scene which is selected by the Supreme Lord to speak Bhagavad Gita? He did not select a classroom like we have to be easily seated, but he selected the war ground of Kurukshetra. Why? Because Bhagavad Gita teaches us how to face difficult situations in life, how to face various challenges in life. So we are also faced with a war-like situation. a crisis in our life. How many of you feel that the life itself creates a situation like war? Any one of you? Others have not experienced. Life has been very peaceful. There has been no ups and downs. There has been no struggles. So this is the perfect setting, because in the age of Kali, there will always be a war-like situation. What is this war? In the war, there are two opposing parties, isn't it? That is why that is the war, that is the battle. And these opposing parties are not without, they are within. That is the another exemplary feature of this age of Kali. That there will always be a conflict between the mind and the heart, between the mind and the intellect. And we are always bewildered that what decisions we should make. So there is always this crisis. And what is the crisis is which side we should, be accepting. So to be able to overcome this war which is there from within our heart, and the difference between the mind, the intellect, and the inner voice which speaks sometimes. So we are baffled, we are confused, we are in great dilemma. So how to be able to take the right decisions? Krishna spoke this knowledge, this wisdom, and we will begin with the first chapter. The first chapter, as I said, is the setting the scene, because the selection of the spot where Bhagavad Gita has been spoken is the battleground of Kurukshetra. And there are millions of soldiers from both the sides. They are arrayed to fight, to lay their life. So every decision that we make in our life will have a big repercussion. To what it will lead us to the ultimate conclusion of life. So that is Dharma, Kshetra. So the first chapter has 46 verse, it has 46 verses, and the first verse is spoken by Dhritarashtra. Anyone of you who do not know about Dhritarashtra? You heard Dhritarashtra? The name Dhritarashtra? Dhritarashtra was the king some 5,000 years ago, and he was such a mighty king that he was the king of the entire world. At that time, this Bharatvarsha, this tract of land known as Bharatvarsha, was so very powerful. The rulers were so very powerful that they were the one who would rule the entire world. So we have such a glorious lineage. And this land was considered to be the land with the golden sparrow. There was so much opulence. Why? Because this was based on Vedic culture, on Vedic knowledge. So the first chapter begins with the inquiry of Dhritarashtra. The first verse is spoken by Dhritarashtra. And this is the only one verse in Bhagavad Gita, the solitary verse which is spoken by Dhritarashtra. All other verses are spoken by other three personalities. The next verse, second verse onward, is spoken by Sanjay. Sanjay happens to be the secretary, the assistant, the personal assistant of Dhritarashtra. And both are seated in the royal palace of the kingdom. Where is the war happening? The war is happening hundreds of kilometers away in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. But at that time, there was so much of science which was developed that the person was empowered to be able to see what is happening hundreds of kilometers away. Sitting here, we are in Delhi. Can we know what is happening in Kurukshetra now? No. We need to use the electronic gadget. We need to use either the mobile phone or a TV or some medium to connect. But the empowerment of Sanjay was such that he was able to visualize. Not only visualize, he was able to see what is happening hundreds of kilometers away. So both of these personalities are seated in the royal kingdom, and Sanjay is narrating what is happening on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So Sanjay speaks 41 words, Dhritarashtra speaks only one verse, that is the first verse. It has very deep significance. We will discuss to some extent that what is the significance of Dhritarashtra speaking only one word, what it signifies, what is its importance. And then Arjuna speaks 84 verses. And most of it is in the form of questions. So actually Bhagavad Gita is like FAQs. You all know FAQs? Frequently asked questions. So Bhagavad Gita is not a boredom. Bhagavad Gita is very pertinent question which signifies how to overcome the bewilderment and confusion in one's life, how to have focus and how to live life to be able to achieve perfection in life. So Arjuna puts these questions in Bhagavad Gita and Krishna answers this question. So Bhagavad Gita is also a question answer session. Krishna answers in 574 verses. So in all, there are some 700 verses. And if you study every day one verse, just if you study every day one verse, in 2 years, each year has almost 365 days. So in less than 2 years, you will be able to complete the study of Bhagavad Gita. And I can assure you, I can guarantee you that there will not be any study which can come close to the study of Bhagavad Gita. Provided you volunteer, you take this journey, you take this expedition. So Dhritarashtra speaks the first verse, and the scene is like this, that the armies are arrayed. There are 11 phalanxes which are there on the side of the Kauravas. You know, there are two parties. One party is represented by the Kauravas, where the king is Dhritarashtra, and the army is being led by the general who is Bhishma Dev, who is the grandfather of the dynasty. And prominent to lead this war is the son of Dhritarashtra, whose name is Duryodhana. And on the other side, there is the Pandavas, the five brothers Pandavas, who are very virtuous, who are very religious. And on their side, they have Krishna. So when both the armies have been arrayed and with a desire to fight, and what was the reason for fight? What was the reason for conflict? That anyone of you would like to answer? Those who have come with first time here, you would like to answer? For the power, okay. You feel it is for the power. Okay. Okay, you say it is to establish dharma. Someone else, some other thoughts? Yeah? Okay, for right. Okay. Some other answers, some other suggestions? Speak. Let us have a participative session. The guys don't want to participate. Only the girls are speaking. What was the contention of war? What led to the war? You have already spoken. You have given your thought that it was a power struggle. No, it was not like a power struggle, what we are seeing in today's war scenario. There is a power struggle going on. There is a war between Ukraine and the Russian. The Russian kingdom is a mighty kingdom. And it is feeling that its power or its position has been undermined by one of the small states, that is the Ukrainian state. So it has gone against war. It has declared an open war to the extent of trying to decimate the entire kingdom. But this war was not fought for power, but this war was fought to establish dharma. Because Kshatriya, the administrative class is called Kshatriya. And Kshatriya means one who protects religion. So on one side, there were the religious Pandavas who were abiding by the religious principles. And on the other side were the sons of Dhritarashtra who are irreligious, who are demoniac, but who could muscle power. So it was the misuse of power that usurped the kingdom of the Pandavas. So the Pandavas wanted their rightful claim. And the sons of Dhritarashtra, they were not willing to give back. So there was no other option but the inevitable war to claim it back. Hmm. So that was the setting. But Dhritarashtra, because he was blind, hmm, and Dhrita and Rashtra, very interesting. The Dhrita and Rashtra is the combination of two words. Dhrita means to hold very tightly. And Rashtra means the kingdom, hmm, or the monarchy. So Dhritarashtra represents a person who is very obsessed, one who is very obsessed of holding his positions. So the first verse is very interesting verse. So Dhritarashtra, can you show the verse? Go down, I think there is the verse there also. I'm starting straight with the verse. I'm not going to do the introduction. We have done the introduction. Did any one of you attend the last session? Those who are present here? You can raise your hand. So I'm not taking the introduction. No, I know all of you, but from the those side. So this is the first verse of Bhagavad Gita. A very interesting verse because in this verse, Dhritarashtra speaks. So it says Dhritarashtra Uvacha. You can recite after me. And this verse is a verse to memorize. Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsava Mamaka Pandavasheva Kima Kurvat Sanjaya. So the words are very important. So Dhritarashtra, he speaks, and what he speaks, he says that Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre, because the war was being fought on the battleground of Kurukshetra. And Kurukshetra is also a very sanctified place. It is a very pious place. Why? Because the religious principles are very much performed there. So it is Dharma Kshetra. Like you have this IARA. For those who are agriculture scientists, when they come, this place is very, very important place. I recently met one vice chancellor who came. He came from Maharashtra. What was that university? Remember? Some Ambedkar University, some agriculture university. He came here for some seminar. And I happened to meet him. He came to meet us in the ISKCON temple. So he was feeling nostalgic that he said it's a great privilege to come back to IARI. Why? Because this is the prestigious institution for all the agricultural scientists, at least in India. So similarly, the Dharma Kshetra is a Kshetra which is a land where pious and religious activities are performed. So Dhritarashtra is inquiring that in this land of Dharma, in this religious place, Kurukshetra, Samaveta means to be assembled. Yuyutsava. Have you heard the word Yuyutsu? Have you seen the Japanese wrestlers? Any one of you, have you seen the Japanese wrestlers? No? You have seen their bulk? They're very fat. Very, very fat. And they call it sumo wrestling. Have you heard? There is in Olympiad also there is this wrestling is there. The Japanese are the pioneers for it. So they also have the word Yuyusava. Yuyusava means the fighting spirit, the fight. So all these who have assembled on the Kshetra of Dharma, is the audio audible for those who are online? Please check with them by text message there. So his inquiry to the secretary is that, my dear Sanjay, those who have assembled on this field of Kurukshetra with the desire to fight, but in the next line he is revealing his mental disposition. He says, Mamaka Pandavascheva. Please try to keep your attention. Yeah. Otherwise, you miss the point. It will look something which is very, very, ordinary, but it is not. It is not ordinary, it is extraordinary. So it requires little attention. So he says, Mamaka Pandavas Chaiva. So Mamaka means mine. Hmm. So what happened with his sons, my sons? Mamaka and Pandava. Pandava are the sons of his brother Pandu. Kimakurvat Sanjaya. So having assembled on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, which is a religious place, with the desire to fight Yuyutsava, what did my sons, the sons of Dhritarashtra, his sons, and the sons of Pandu do? So this question itself reveals, see, when the person speaks, through the words, what is revealed? His mind is revealed. You can see, if you want to know that what is the mental position of a person, what you have to do, you have to invoke him to speak. By speaking what he does, he reveals his mind. A teacher, when you ask questions, a teacher is able to know how much you have grasped the subject. Why? What has gone in, what is your conception? Based on your conception, you will ask the question, the inquiry will be there. So this question reveals the inner, uh, the internal disposition, the mental position of Dhritarashtra. So what is the mental position of Dhritarashtra? So Dhritarashtra represents the common person, common man. So what is the position of a common man? That in his life, he always has an element of doubt. He is never very, confident. The confident is always very, very shaky. Why? Because there is an element of doubt. The doubting tendency is there, which is very deep. If you meet someone and he gives you a proposal, immediately there is an element of doubt. You doubt whether this person can be believed or not, whether he can be relied or not, whether you can have faith in him or not. So this inquiry reveals the disposition, and it reveals the inner state of mind that Dhritarashtra is both fearful, he is having fear, and secondly, he is filled with anxiety. His heart is filled with anxiety. Why? Because he is inquiring on the basis of Mamaka and Pandava. What is the basis of his inquiry? What did my son and the sons of Pandu do? Why? Because he is discriminating. There is an element of discrimination. Although as a king, if you see as a king, like, welcome Dinesh, come, Hare Krishna. So as a king, he is supposed to give shelter to everyone. Like a teacher, like Dinesh ji is a lecturer, he is a teacher, he is a professor. For him, everyone in IARI are students. So he cannot say, these are my students and these are the students of some other teacher. Do you do that? You don't do that. Not expected at least to do that in the ideal position. So he as a king, he had the duty of being impartial to both the Pandavas and the Kauravas because both were his subjects. But he is discriminating. Why? Because he is attached. He is showing the reflection of his attachment towards his son. And everyone in the world feels that Dhritarashtra was attached to the sons. But no, he was attached to the sons because his sons were the instrument to give him, they were the means to fulfill his deeper attachment. And what was his attachment? His attachment was to remain the king. To remain the king. So in material life, in our normal life, many times we have many desires. And what these desires do, these desires, when we contemplate on it, or when we try to start focusing on it, so what it becomes? It becomes our attachment. And what attachment does? Attachment, it blinds us. So Dhritarashtra was not only physically blind, definitely he was spiritually blind, but he was also morally and religiously blind. He became blind to discriminate between his citizens, and he could not follow his duty. So attachment, what it does, attachments leads us to absorption. And he is so much absorbed, so he is inquiring that in this religious place, Dharmashetra, what is his fear? So the attachment is revealing his fear. There are two aspects. One is the doubt, and why the doubt is there? Because there is fear in the heart. So why we are always doubtful? Because the doubt is there because there is a fear. And what is the fear? The fear is what Dhritarashtra is revealing here, that this is the place of religious principles. Kurukshetra is a land which is empowered. There was a king, very interesting, there is a story. There was a king called Kuru. And that Kuru king, he performed many sacrificial performances in this place of Kurukshetra. And he was able to satisfy the demigods, mainly the chief of the demigods, Indradev. And from Indradev, he got a boon, he got a blessing. He said that whoever performs any religious activity in Kurukshetra, he will achieve perfection. He will achieve success. So I had proposed to go to Kurukshetra. That boon is still there. So what was the fear in the heart which was leading to doubt for Dhritarashtra was that he was thinking that in this place of religion, where the place is surcharged with the religious atmosphere, so his doubt was that by the irreligious son, they might also not become religious. And if they become religious, what they will do? They might compromise with the Pandavas. So they might not fight, and what they would do, they would settle to share the kingdom, or even they would settle to give away the kingdom. So what was the fear in his heart? That he never wanted a compromise. He wanted the war. So see how attachment leads us to absorption and infatuation. He was infatuated to possess the kingdom. And the other reason is why Kurukshetra is called Dharmashetra, because the demigods also, once this boon was received to the king Kuru, many of the demigods also used to come to perform many sacrifices, because this is a land will fulfill or will award all success. So many demigods used to come and perform sacrifices. So it became sanctified. And also, one of the incarnations of the Supreme Lord, Lord Parshuram, he performed his austerities here. If you go to Kurukshetra, there is a place called Samanta Panchaka. In that place where Parshuram performed his austerities. So this place has become very sanctified. And more or less on the battlefield of Kurukshetra was present the father of religion, which is Lord Krishna. So in his heart, he had this very much fear and doubt that because of the influence of the religious place, my irreligious son, they may not turn to become religious, or they may compromise. I'll give you one short story. It's a true story. It so happened that there was a village, and in that village there used to be a robber, a thief. Somehow he was forced to take to that kind of irreligious act, and he would go and survey the place where he would, do his act of robbery. That is what the thieves do normally. They first survey the place, find out what is the appropriate time to go and commit such an act. So he surveyed one of the rich couple who was living in the village, and he found out that they have good wealth and they do not have an offspring. There is no one in the succession of the family. So all the wealth that there was there with the old couple, he was thinking that he will be able to rob. So one night he went there incognito, trying to hear what they speak. And the lady was telling the husband that we have lived our life. hmm, This wealth has not given us much. We are not having any children. So on the outskirt of the village, there is a saint who has an ashram, a hermitage. So next morning we will go there, and whoever first we meet in the hermitage, we will hand over all our wealth to him, and we will go for pilgrimage. So when this thief, this robber heard this story, he was, very much inspired. He thought that what I will do, he got a trick. He thought of an idea. Uh, what do you say, na? Dimag ki batti jal gayi. Not by drinking some, soda water, like the ad says. Uh, so, what he did not sleep that night. Uh, he found out the hermitage, and what he did, he stood right in front of the hermitage, thinking that as soon as this old couple will come, he will be seeing me the first person to me. And when he sees me, as per his promise, what they will do, they will hand over all the property to me. So easily I will get it. So why should I rob? Why should I take the risk? So he did that. But the couple, the old couple, they were very pious men. So they decided not to come from the front gate. They decided to come from the back gate. And when they decided to come from the back gate, when they entered the hermitage, there was the assembly of students. In the morning, what is there? Assembly. You have been to schools? In the schools, there used to be assembly. I remember in my school days, I used to stand in the assembly. So this thief, when the sun started to rise, so was his heartbeat, because he was not able to see the couple. So he thought that my thoughts, my plans have got spoiled. So he saw the couple coming from the other side. But what to do? So they had already approached, they have entered in. So he stood behind all the students who were there in the hermitage. So when this couple entered, so he asked the first student that we have so much of wealth, so much of property, and we don't have a son. So we want to treat you like son, and we want to hand over all the property to you. Will you please accept it? But surprise of all, the student said, no, sir. I am not interested, because I myself is the property of my teacher. First, I will have to ask from my teacher. If he agrees, then only I will accept, otherwise I cannot accept. So this happened. So they went from one student to the second student to the third student, and finally they reached this thief who was in disguise as a student. But even bigger surprise of all, so as the thief was hearing and he was in the hermitage, he also echoed the same answer. He said, no, sir. I will not accept. Why? What led to such transformation? The place, the sanctity of the place, the association of the saintly persons. So this fear was there in the heart of Dhritarashtra, that because this place is Dharmashetra, this is a sanctified land, so my wicked-minded sons, my evil-minded son, who has always plotted to usurp this kingdom, their heart might not change. And they may not make compromise, and they may not hand over the kingdom. So his attachment, you see, this attachment, what attachment does? It makes it makes our intelligence become weak. If we have material attachment, I'll give you an example. Any one of you who has come with a new pair of shoe today? Anyone? No one? In case if you come with a new pair of shoe and you keep your shoe outside, and then you have to sit in the class, where will your mind be focusing? Where will your mind be focusing? On the shoe, not what is being told in the class. So this is a very deep message which Dhritarashtra is conveying is our minds are filled with doubts and fears. And because owing to such doubts and fears, we cannot accept, we cannot discriminate between what is right and wrong, what is to be done in life and what is not to be done. What is duty and what is passion? Nowadays, there is a theory. The advertisers and the marketeers, they try to sell their products by trying to advertise it that this is your passion. But if we come to Bhagavad Gita, passion leads us to bewilderment, and bewilderment leads us to blindness. So Dhritarashtra, he was very, very fearful in his heart because he was thinking that if my sons and the sons of Pandu they compromise, then what will I have to give up? I have to give up the kingdom. I will have to give up the position of being the king. He was so attached, he was so obsessed, he was so covetous. You know the word covetous? Because this kingdom did not belong to him. Try to let the mosquito fly by. So, and what he did because of his attachment, actually, if you see, the Duryodhana is not such a bad character as is Dhritarashtra, because Dhritarashtra was aware. Dhritarashtra knew very well that this war is being fought on the religious principles, and his sons are all irreligious. And in any situation when the Supreme Lord is on the side of the Pandavas, irreligion can never win over religion. So instead of stopping his sons, instead of correcting and rectifying his son, what he did, he encouraged his son. And ultimately his attachment to remain the king led to the destruction of the entire dynasty. All his 100 sons were killed. And he knew very well that all the sons will be killed because they are all irreligious. So in our heart of hearts, we also know very well that what is not good for us, what is bad, what is to be done and what has to be given up. But owing to our weakness of heart, and what is that weakness of heart? In the form of attachments, material attachments. So what we do? We become completely helpless. We become puppets. We become slaves to our various attachments. We may have our own list of attachments. One may be attached to intoxication. One may be attached to socializing. One may be attached to, gossiping. Or there can be many, many attachments. One may be attached to a particular phone, a car, or so many other things, to a girl, to a boy, the natural. I'll give you one more example. What attachment does. In a college, there were two students, one girl and a boy. Like you have an IERI co-ed institution. Most of the institutions are now co-ed. And they both were in infatuation to each other. And both of them had, lot of dreams. Like youths, everyone lives in the dreams and aspirations. So they wanted to become partners in life. And they were thinking if they have money, if they become rich, then they can really live life and enjoy life. So what they plotted, there was a very mysterious plot they did. The girl said that she will marry a very wealthy businessman's son. And after the marriage, what she will do, they will try to kill the son. And because she will be the daughter-in-law of the family, she will inherit property. And after having the property, she will marry again with her friend, and they will both live long life and enjoy life. But what happened that this girl, after she was married, when she saw the boy was a very good character. And she became impressed and influenced with the boy. And somehow, because of the family was having a very pious background, so her heart transformed and she changed the decision. She wanted to continue with her husband and she started to ignore the boy. And then we are real story. And that boy, he was because he was attached to the girl. That boy became so obsessed, he became so frustrated that not getting the girl, not getting the well, he became so frustrated that he wanted to end his life. And what he did, he took out petrol from his mobile, from his bike, and he wanted to self-immolate himself. Somehow, some of our devotees uh, found him and rescued him and brought him back uh, and told him that this life is not a life of obsession and possessions. So this lesson is being taught through Dhritarashtra. This is the lesson number one. Open the presentation. Let us see the presentation. I just go back. Go back. Yeah. So attachments are proportionate to anxiety. So in our life, to the extent we have material attachments, to the extent we have material obsessions, we are thinking that wealth will give me, happy life. Someone is having happiness written, I think in your t-shirt. One of you are having happiness written in your t-shirt. I noticed it. Yes, it is natural. It is the property of the soul to seek happiness. But we should know where we can become happy. The soul is spiritual by nature. The spiritual soul cannot find happiness in material objects or material possessions. An example is giving like of a fish. If a fish is taken out of water, if it is kept in a air-conditioned environment, can it be happy? Can it be happy? If it is given champagne to drink, huh? Fish, please have some champagne. Can it be happy? It cannot be happy. What it needs to be in water to be able to be happy. So similarly, all of us are all spiritual beings. And we can only be happy if we follow our religious principles. If we try to avoid the religious principles, and why we avoid religious principles? Due to our various attachments. So we may have our own list of attachments. Huh? Some of you would like to reveal, share what are the attachments which does not allow us to perform our duties. Then we can have a more meaningful discussion. How much time more I have? Another 10 minutes. So Dhritarashtra is revealing. He is a blind man. So why is he blind? Because he is very attached. Where is he attached? His attachment is to the kingdom. Similarly, we have our quota of attachments. Many attachments. And these attachments are so deep rooted that we on our own cannot overcome the attachment. Can we overcome the attachment? Every year we make resolution, New Year resolution. What is the New Year? After every examination, there is one resolution that I will not allow myself to come in this situation. From next year, I will study throughout the year so that I do not land up in this crisis. But what happens next year? Does the situation change? No, because we are slave of our habits, of our attachments. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us, one of the greatest principles of Bhagavad Gita is how to balance our attachment and aversions. Yagnesh Prabhu wrote that the first 12 verses signifies Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. So you see the two aspects. Dhritarashtra represents attachment. And what does Duryodhana represent? Aversion. They are the two sides of the same coin. So our life is a pendulum between our attachments and our aversions. You understand what is aversion? Which we dislike, or which we hate, or where we have some harsh feelings. So our life is spent in trying to fulfill our attachments and in trying to negate our aversions. But human life is not meant for attachments and aversions. Human life is meant for self-realization. And the greatest stumbling block in the path of self-realization is material attachments. What is the nature of the soul to have attachments? Huh? No one can be without attachment, but having wrong attachments. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us where to have the right attachment. Attachment should be to perform our duty. Attachment should, then one can enjoy. Why? Happiness comes when one performs duty. Happiness is the outcome of one performing religious principle. Happiness cannot be acquired by any other artificial means. The quota of happiness and distress in human life is fixed. One cannot expand it. And what is the basis of this quota of happiness and distress? You see, in the search of happiness, what we are encountered with, there is so much distress. There is so much disappointment. Why? Because happiness on our own, we cannot experience. Happiness is only possible if we live a meaningful life, a dutiful life. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us how to balance our attachments and aversion. And how to do that? How to come out of the attachment is by following the regulative principles. Raga dvesha vimukteshu vishayan indriyascharan. So raga and dvesha, both attachment and aversion, one has to give up. And how one can give up? By following the regulative principles. The regulative principles of freedom. One has to lead a religious life, a life which is filled of performing one's duty. We see the position of Dhritarashtra. He was failing to perform his duty. It was his duty to give protection to the Pandavas more than to the Kauravas, his son, because he was the king. So we must inquire in life what is our duty in this human form of life. Our duty is not eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Everyone is busy in the four activities. How I can eat more sumptuously? How can I enjoy my food? Some people live to eat. Most of the people now, they are called foodies. They're very fond of food. But that is not the goal of life. But some people eat to live. Similarly, some people are wanting happiness. Why? So that they can have better resources, a better way of sleeping. And while sleeping, what they want to enjoy? They want to enjoy sex life. So human life is not meant for eating, sleeping, or sex, or defending when someone is trying to kill you. Anyway, we cannot defend ourselves. Can anybody defend himself? There is 100% death rate. Has anybody survived the onslaught of death? No. No one. So everyone will be forced to leave this body. So eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, these are not the goals of life. So Bhagavad Gita gives us the path of inquiry, that what is the purpose of human life and how to achieve the purpose of human life. This is what Bhagavad Gita has spoken. So the first verse, the personality of Dhritarashtra, signifies that how attachment can make us blind, how attachment can make us helpless, and how attachment leads us to complete destruction. Dhritarashtra became the cause of complete destruction of his family. So whatever attachments we have to purify. Please keep hearing. Don't think about the noise. So how to purify the attachments? How to come out of our own sets of attachment? And the process is given in Bhagavad Gita. So please keep coming, keep hearing. How many of you want to get rid of your attachments? Not everyone. Some feel that their attachment is their prized possession. They want to preserve it. Okay, so I'll stop here. And from your side, if there is any further inquiry or doubt or question, you may ask. Please ask, please feel free to inquire. If you are hearing Bhagavad Gita, if something has inspired you, you may ask. Okay, it comes from the professor, Dinesh ji.
You mentioned that what is the difference between religious principles and spiritual principles? How can we differentiate these?
Yeah, very good question. Yeah, religious principles and spiritual. Actually, once we follow some principles, and that is the religious principles, then we come to the human platform of life. One who is not following the religious principle, he is not a, he may be in the human body, but his consciousness is not on the platform of being human. So one who is not religious, dharma hitesho adhika vishesho dharma vihina pashu bhi samana. Ahar nidra bhay maithun samana. So one who is in this human form of life, who is not following the religious principle, he is compared to the subspecies of human life, which is the animalistic kind of life. Now people say, no, I don't believe in religion. So what they believe in? They believe in only these four activities: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Actually, this is their religion. They're misguided. So those who are religious, those who are on the human platform, they can come to the platform of being spiritual. So this is a stepping stone. This is the platform from where one can come to the spiritual elevation. Because if this platform is missing, if this platform, supposingly there are so many cats and dogs also in IERI. I just came, I saw some cat moving. Uh, so the cat is also active in this four, activities of life: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. But is it possible for the cat to come here, sit, and understand this principle of attachment? No. The body is of cat, and the consciousness is also of cat. So unless and until we follow the religious principles, we do not come to the human platform, because the human platform is from where we can inquire. When we can inquire about the spiritual truths. Not this inquiry. This is also an inquiry. There is also an inquiry. When you go outside, when you want to buy something, you also inquire. What is the price of this mobile phone? Or what is the price of this cold drink? But that inquiry is not the platform of human inquiry. Human inquiry is to inquire what is the purpose of human life and how I can achieve it. So from this platform begins the journey of fulfilling the purpose of human life. So being religious means, religious does not mean Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai or आपस में सब करे लड़ाई. That is not religious principle. Because religion teaches us to love. And to love means to sacrifice. And to sacrifice means to serve. It was the duty of Dhritarashtra to have given shelter to the Pandavas. It was more of his duty. Why? Because his younger brother, the father of Pandavas, had already died. So he was by default having the position of taking the position of their father and to protect. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us the principle of Vasudev Kutumbakam. You see the war which is happening in Ukraine. Why? Where is Ukraine coming from? Ukraine is a part of erstwhile Russia. But why they are fighting? Just because of the power, power hungry, obsession, or there is this attachment. Because the Russian Prime Minister still considered that this territory belongs to me, part of me. So if I don't have it, I will demolish it. Isn't it? This is his mentality. His mentality is revealed through the war. If I cannot possess this, no one else I will allow. I will completely destroy and decimate it. So religious principle is very much required to be followed. So then we need to know what is religious principle. If one is not aware of what the principles are, so what he will be doing? He will not be following. Okay? Someone else? the more younger students, intellectual students from IARI, scientist students. Any scientific thought or question? Yes.
Sir, is any form of attachment wrong? Like if we are having the attachment to do good towards humanity or for a greater purpose, sir, so sir, is it wrong? Like if we are having attachment, if every form of attachment is wrong.
No, but it has to be determined. So who will determine? The person who is attached, can he determine his attachment is right or wrong? Is it possible? Mr. Putin says that his attachment is right. Does the world share the same view with what Mr. Putin has? Huh? So there has to be someone who is impartial. So Dhritarashtra had the guidance. Dhritarashtra was again and again reminded by Bhishmadev, by his brother Vidura. But what attachment leads, attachment makes the person deaf. Did he hear the advice of Vidur? Mahatma Vidur? No, he rejected. So we need to have someone who is a spiritual guide, who can release us and who can guide us where to place the right attachment, which attachment is right for us, which can enable us to progress in life. Okay? I expect more questions, some more, deeper questions where can I have more detailed discussion. Yes, Sonika?
As you told that we are here, means our nature has become to just eat, sleep, and mating and that. So we are fond of eating. We are kind of foodies and we love to eat. So what is the difference of normal eating and eating with having prasada instead of having prasada?
Yes, when we will come in the third chapter, the Krishna will speak because whatever food that we are receiving, you are all agricultural scientists. You know this more than me, that all the plantation and the vegetation and the crops we are receiving, it is coming from nature. If the nature does not favor, can we have the plantation? No. Can a grain of, rice be prepared in the factory? No. It has to come from Mother Earth. So we receive all food, all grains, all supplies through nature. And this nature is governed by the various administrators. They are called the demigod. So one who receives, do we pay for the sunlight? You all know, if the sunlight is not given to the plants, will there be crops? Will there be crops? No. If there is no rainfall, if there is drought, will there be crops? No. As a young, I was an economist in my early days of studies. So when I was young, I was studying in class 11th and 12th, when I used to see the statistics of India's food grain production, I used to feel very, very, pathetic. And when I used to see the food grain production of wheat and all of America and Argentina, I used to say, I had this desire at that time that I will reverse this trend. Why? Because India is very, poor in technique and they don't have the resources. They have not integrated the irrigation facilities. So there is so much of fluctuation. One year you have 40 million tons and next year you have just 25 million tons. What is the reason? There has been no rainfall. But then when I looked at the data of America, Australia, these are one of the big producing states, Argentina and Canada, the same situation was there. Same situation. Many times, there used to be crisis of wheat. I also had a wheat production unit. So no one can win over nature. Can anyone win over nature? All the scientists are trying, but is it possible? Not possible. Unless and until you have the nature favoring you, you cannot produce anything. So what we need to do, we have to, and do we pay for the rainfall? Does any farmer or any government pay for the rainfall bill that comes from nature or from the sun? So we owe debt to them. So if we are taking resources without paying them, if somebody takes some property without paying, so what is he called? A thief. And what is the thief liable to be? Punished. So law of karma is very subtle. The law of karma acts. That is why we see, successive after few cyclical years, you have famine, you have drought, you have, like India has now banned the export of wheat. You see the food grain prices, it is all-time high. And as this Kali Yuga will progress, it is said in the scriptures that just 50 years from now, people will have to carry currency in big bag to bring a piece of bread. That will be the position. And the way it is surging ahead, those days are not very far off. Why? Because we are not repaying. If someone takes any favor from someone without giving back his due, then what he is liable for? He is liable for reactions. So that reaction comes in the form of punishment. So, but when we take prasad, we have offered to Krishna. And when we offer to Krishna, we have already satisfied all the demigods, the administrator. So we are relieved from the sin. Yagya Srishta Shina Shanto Bujyate Sarv Kalpishe. That is 3.13. Bhunjate te tva agham papam ye pachanti atma karana. But others who are not offering and eating, they are verily eating sin. So one who is eating sin, what will be the situation of his life? He will have to really take the reaction. His life will be full of struggle and suffering. Okay. So very important. So my suggestion to you is, I did this exercise long back when I first heard this. I prepared a list of all my attachments. What all are, the attachments which are not allowing me to take to my religious principles in life. And I mailed it to my superior, my spiritual guide. And I revealed him that these are my stumbling blocks. And believe me, most of them were, they were just kicked off. So we should introvert and introspect. So attachment makes us blind. Attachment makes us weak. It is one of the weakness of heart which does not allow us to perform duty. And the symbol of that is it leads us not only to blindness, it leads us not just to become helpless, it leads us to complete destruction and devastation. So the better, the earlier. The earlier, the better. We should try to reveal our attachment and try to practice not to remain slaves of our attachment. So Bhagavad Gita gives this first verse, gives this very important learning, the lesson. Bhagavad Gita teaches us that through wisdom and knowledge, one can become detached. On the platform of desire, there is only attachment. But when one graduates to come to the level of beauty, then one has to become detached to be able to perform. If I come here in IARI, I see only very few students. But it is my duty to come. When I go to the temples to speak, there are hundreds and devotees who are willing to hear and thousands here on the internet. But that should not be the criterion. Because I have been told, I have been given this duty to come and educate. Even one person is willing to hear, I will be willing to come and impart this knowledge. Not based on the results. Attachments are based on what is going to be the gain for me. Because what was Dhritarashtra thinking? That if I remain the king, I will become happy. But did he remain happy? He remained the king. Yudhishthir was so much detached that even after gaining the kingdom, you see, if you see the Srimad Bhagavatam, after the war was won and all the sons of Dhritarashtra died, so Yudhishthir Maharaj still considered Dhritarashtra to remain the king. But was he happy? All our life we may be, developing some attachment and thinking that by possessing one object or the other, we will become happy. But ultimately, what will happen? Material thing will never make us lead to any happiness. But what will be spent? Life will be over and it will be too late to realize. So Bhagavad Gita gives us the wisdom, the knowledge and the purification how to become detached. So beautiful work is that is detached and dutiful work, which does not bring any reactions. Attachment leads us to further reactions. Okay, I'll stop. It is 8:45 now. Okay. Thank you for coming. And from next session, we will see the aversion part. We have seen the attachment part, which is represented by Dhritarashtra. And from next verse, we will see the diplomacy of Duryodhana. That how Duryodhana, he is also a second part of what attachment is, that is aversion. So one who has attachment in his heart, there is bound to be aversion. And aversion will never ever allow him to experience any happiness. Because when the heart is burning due to hatred, can one experience happiness? It is not possible. So we will see that in the next session. Thank you very much for coming and spending your time. Some of you just joined. So, so you please keep coming. You are early for next session. I take it in that way. Next Saturday we will have the session continued. So you are all invited, and you can invite your friends to come. I see more of girls than boys. Boys, they are not inclined to open their eyes. But whoever desires to take the advantage, the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita is welcome. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to those who have assembled here. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Those who do not have copy of Bhagavad Gita, I would request please take one copy of Bhagavad Gita. And when you come, please bring the book, because from next time we will take the shlokas. This is one book which you must have in your life. Have this book with you. This should be the constant companion. Not a mobile phone will be the constant companion. After every 2-3 years, you will have to change the phone. But Bhagavad Gita is a companion which will be throughout your life. And this will elevate your life to such a degree where you don't have to come back to take this material body. Hare Krishna. And there is, of course, foodie, feast for you. There is prasad for you in our Sattvic mess. So please join us there. Hare Krishna. Sonika